In this video, we're going to take our photo restoration and add a little bit of colorization to it. So this image restoration was from the last lecture, and I'm just going to continue on using this one. Now, photo colorization can be time consuming. Generally, it has a certain kind of look to it. You're not going to get to most likely, not without spending a great deal of time, get to what would a true color photography would look like, but we can colorize things and enhance them using various tools. Just like we finished up the last lecture, adjusting the brightness and contrast and the values, we can adjust the color. Now, this picture is kind of a more of a warm sepia color. We could colorize directly on top of this. Just know this would affect the colors, of course. I tend to convert everything to a grayscale. And honestly, I'm going to try both, and it's going to be very easy to try both as we go through here. So I have some layers here from the previous lecture. I'm just going to put these all in a group to save them in case I need them. And I selected those layers and hit Control G to add them to a group. I have my original here, original edit, I should say. The original is down here, actually. We want to see the original. That's the original. So you can see where we came from the last lecture, and we moved to the final value painted one here. Now, again, I'm going to copy this layer just because I want to do at least my first attempt on this as a true semi-true grayscale here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a copy by holding down Alt and selecting the layer and dragging it a little bit. It doesn't matter which way you drag it. I'm going to drag it up in this case, and I'm going to make a copy. Now, what I'm going to do with this layer is I'm going to go into there's lots of tools that can actually do this, but the tool I personally like to use is called Hue Saturation. And if I select the quick key for that, Control U, it will bring up the Hue Saturation tool. And the saturation in this case is the middle bar right here. If you drag this all the way to the left, it'll just basically make it a grayscale. Now this is a grayscale still with color values, though I said kind of a grayscale. There is a grayscale also under image, mode, grayscale. This is a true one bit, grayscale, one value grayscale. This is still technically an RGB color, but we just made all the values grayscale. I tend to do this because it gives me more options. But if we went to grayscale first and converted it, and then a lot of people like to do this way, then they go to image, mode, grayscale. They don't merge, and then what they do is they convert it to grayscale, and then they go back in image, mode, back to RGB. Now, if you had lots and lots of layers, maybe this might be a good way to go. So you don't have to go through every single element and do Control U and then drag down the saturation. But as you saw, I only had one layer, so I definitely would have done the hue saturation in this method. Just note, if you do grayscale, it does it for the entire image. That's why I didn't want to do this. It does it for all the layers in there, and I don't want to do that. But again, if you have a lot of elements and you're okay with having everything turned to grayscale, it might be quicker to go up to image mode grayscale and then just go right back up there and go image mode RGB. All right, so I have this true grayscale image here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new layer. And what we're going to do on this layer is we're going to just use our brush tool. It's actually very straightforward, and we're going to sample a color. If you want, you could perhaps even go to an actual color photo, perhaps a more modern color photo that isn't damaged or anything, and you can actually sample the colors from there. Or if you are artistically minded or want to play with it some, you can just sample the colors from in here as well. So if I want to, pick a random color, and I tend to even sometimes push these a little bit more. I tend to go a little more extreme with this. But I'm going to go ahead and paint a color on here. And I'm just going to set my value to 100%. I'm going to go ahead and leave it as a feathered brush here. And I'm just going to paint on this. And it's going to look really, really bad. Really, really bad. Oh my goodness, so bad. What am I doing? Yes, I'm just painting this pinkish color, which is a little bit too pink. But we'll see when we drop the color down in this case. So what I'm going to do is change this color that I'm painting on, this layer that I'm painting this color on. Be sure you don't paint on the original. And in fact, if you want to lock this one, i.e. click on it and hit the lock icon to lock it, go back up to my color one here. And you can change this to color. And yeah, that's way too pink. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this alone. I'm going to keep going, actually. I'm just going to go ahead and paint this pink, and I'm going to harden the edge of this brush by using Shift right bracket. I don't want to go completely hard edged, but I want a little harder of an edge. And I'm going to go ahead and just finish this off and paint this pink. I'm okay with that. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the color later. So I'm just going to come in here and paint this pink, get one value here, and this is going to be my very first pass. Come in here, use the eraser tool, E key, erase what I don't want. My opacity currently set pretty low, which is fine. I tend to not want to often work at 100%. And again, I'm also using a pen tablet, so I have both the pressure of my pen tablet as well as the opacity of Photoshop, and they do work together. So I tend to use both because I tend to be personally heavy-handed with my drawing technique. So I definitely tend to lower the opacities as I go. B key. All right, there we go. All right, so what I'm going to do is, because this is way too pink, I mean, maybe we might want some of that on the nose or something like that. I'm going to go ahead and play with hue saturation the exact same way I made this grayscale and see if I can change this color to something that is more to my liking. So I'm going to hit Control U, and it brings up the hue saturation. Now, you can target certain colors if you're painting more colors in here. For example, if you can target reds, yellows, greens, blues, and this is kind of a pink color, so red would probably trigger it, or maybe magenta. But this is the only color in here, so I'm going to leave it on master, which will affect all colors. And I'm just going to drag the hue left and right to kind of figure out where I want to go with this. And then maybe, just add a little bit, more hue. And then maybe I might increase the lightness because I think I went a little too far. It's a little too saturated in this case. And the lightness is one way to, in this case, brightness and, lightness will, lighten it up some so it's not so extreme. I'm going to hit OK. Now, if we look at this color, and we'll go back to normal, it looks something like this. Now, remember, the color I painted with is pink. And what you want to do is, I personally recommend, because I'm just going to paint a swatch over here. You know what? I'm going to go ahead and keep this pink swatch that I picked originally, just to keep it. And I'm going to hold out Alt while I'm on the brush tool, and I'm going to sample this color here. And I'm going to paint these over here. I'm just painting these little swatches over here, just to have them in case I need them. I can get rid of them later if I don't want them. So I'll come in also where I can tell that I did a bad job there. Switches back to color. So now I have those. And now there's a problem here. Unfortunately, if I were to sample this while this is on color mode, I'm going to get a different color. So if you want to get back to that original color, and I do apologize that you have to kind of step through this, you have to go back to normal, sample the color, switch it back to color. Because otherwise, you're not going to get the same results. You're going to get a different result. And in fact, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and sample this now because I'm going to use it. And I think I'm going to use it at low opacity. So I'm going to drop it 20%. I'm going to paint a little bit more on the shadow side just to kind of try some things here. Maybe darken these areas up a little bit. I want to go back to my pink. I think I'm just going to pick a pink though. New pink. Maybe I'll paint that in here. A little bit much. Paint the ears maybe. I think it's not enough. Go more reddish. Get that subsurface scattering that you see sometimes in the form, And like I said, I'm gonna probably, and it looks really bad right now, but I'm gonna go ahead and switch back to normal. Looks like this. Go back to color. It doesn't take much. 10%, maybe tone this down a bit. It's also a good idea to sample more than one color. So again, if you hit the X key and then go back and pick your other colors, that way you can switch back and forth. That might be a smart idea to do that. So I'm kind of switching back and forth by tapping the X key back between what I'm trying to do is, give this person a little more rosy, life in their cheeks. Technically, people have all kinds of colors in their skin tones. You wouldn't you'd be surprised, but greens and greens and blues from certain things. So I mean, you really have to get a lot of this tone if you, like I said, if you wanted to try to mimic more realistic color in skin tones. That's way too peachy, but I tend to have pretty red lips, so Maybe this person does too. Maybe I'll go more brownish color. And I'm keeping my flesh tone on one of these. So I'm being sure not to go too far with it. So I'm always switching back and knocking it back myself. You know what? I might even try actually just to go for broke here. Try it. I'm gonna go 05 for 5%. Literally just put a little bit of this green in here. You know, maybe on the around it. It doesn't. I mean, a mixture of colors when it blends to the eye, it tends to kind of merge together. And again, I'm making sure I keep my flesh tone on one of these. Whatever you decide is you're going to be the base flesh tone. I tend to knock back and forth between that and other colors that I paint. It's going to be a little more straight up just white, or for highlights up here. That would be more contrast oriented, but I don't have anything for that yet. So I'm kind of toning it back and forth. Maybe I'll get more darker brown towards the. You know what? I'm going to try some of this orange. That should go well. Get that orange in there now. In the back of the ears, not in the edge. Not in the edges. In the areas here. I'm kind of getting, like I said, a little bit of all these colors. This orange in here. And then I'm going to go back because I lost my color in my sample here. Sample that one because I forgot. I accidentally did that, and that's going to happen. That's why you made my color swatches. Painting some more colors. All right, I think that's good enough for now. His hair is probably dark, but just for the sake of the lecture, I'm probably going to make him have brown hair a little bit more. So I'm going to start throwing some tints of brown in there. And again, you tend to go way overboard with the colors, and sometimes, like I said, you saw me do orange there. I don't want to go too close to what I would think the color would be, because it's gonna lose some of its effect as it gets changed to color. You don't have to do this, but I'm going to do this. I'm going to make a new layer and also make this color, just so I can have my hair and my flesh tones, my face, on different layers. This is completely optional. That way you can have individual control of them. It doesn't look like this was set to color. I thought I did that already, but I didn't. And that is definitely too red. So, but once again, I'm just going to go ahead and paint this all out. I'll come back with the hue saturation, and then find a color that's more accurate. Then I'll go clean it up with the eraser afterwards. So yeah, it looks like a kind of like sort of a Joker here or something. So let me go ahead and change the hue saturation here and tone down the saturation a bit, quite a bit. So you can see I dropped the saturation a lot, and this is why I put on another layer right here, so I don't have to worry about selecting and finding this in the other ones. I'm gonna go a little overboard just so it's easier to read. I think that's pretty good. And then I'm gonna come back in with the eraser tool here, and not at 100%, maybe 50%. Kind of have to fill that out and kind of find what it's going to be. So there you go. You can kind of see I've toned that in. Obviously, this person has darker colored eyes, but you know what? Just for the sake of it, Control Shift N to make a new layer. Let's try giving them green eyes. Let's see if I can get that to come through. I don't think this will work too well, but it never hurts to try. Green eyes, changes to color. And that's definitely way too. I see. Almost every time I pick, I have to come back in with the hue saturation and get a little bit more. And yeah, the person has really dark colored eyes, but there's a hint of green in there. I think it's too much still. And again, another way you can tone these down is by going into the opacity of the layer. Maybe something like that. So this is very little. And if you're happy with that, you're like, okay, that's good, and you want to merge them, you can merge same kind of layer. These are both color layers. I can just merge these together, and then I got to reswitch it back to color. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and do a new layer. New layer here. Create a new layer. I'm gonna go ahead and use the same crazy green color that I had. Turn the opacity back up. Not on the eraser. So make sure you're on the eraser. Not on the eraser. Again, the E key is the eraser. The Bravo key, B key is the brush. So I'm going to come in here and I'm just going to be, again, because I'm working in layers, I can be sloppy with how I paint this. So I can come in here and really paint around the edges. I'll switch this to color eventually, but right now I'm just painting around this a lot, and you can see that it's, you know, it's okay. You can if anything, you want to probably go into the form a little bit, so that way you can erase it away. So here we go. This is for the background. Switch this to color. That's way too bright. And why it's way too bright, I think I'm going to go ahead and use the eraser tool, E key, and clean up these edges because it'll be easier to see what's bright. So I'm going to get this, you know, this tends to be how it goes. So you can see I'm kind of coming in here, erasing this a little bit more, getting a little more cleaner around these edges here. All right, then I'm going to use Hue Saturation to tone this back or darken this. I think I don't, because this is a background, we can get away with a lot in this. So maybe something a little more darker, more. I kind of like it going bluish, actually. You can also, you know, while you're here, you can also play with other things to perhaps quote unquote enhance this. I don't know how this will work, but let's give it a shot. I'm going to hit Control Shift and create a new layer. And I'm going to go ahead just to showcase more tools, hit the G key, the gradient tool. Now, I don't know if you guys have your settings set the same, but right now this is transparent to a color. If under basics, it's the second one here. I prefer this particular gradient over the most. You might be on just black and white or foreground background color. These are fine, but I'm really going to stick to the middle one, which is color to transparency, foreground color to transparency. So in this case, I'm just going to do, I'll just leave it the green. I was going to change the color, but maybe I'll just do a bit gradient here. And yeah, like, what are you doing? This looks crazy. What I'm going to do is I painted this gradient on a new layer above my green background that I painted. This is a not very good trick here. I don't know if it's going to work for this one, but this is a valuable trick here. You can drop all this layer's information specifically to another layer by holding down Alt and clicking between the two layers. So what that means is if I hold down Alt, this layer's above this one, hold down Alt, you get this little icon, looks like a little square that points with an arrow pointing down. What this will do is when I click on this, it will only drop these pixels to this layer here. If there's nothing there, it won't do anything. So Alt, click here. Oops, missed. There we go. You can see that now, because there's in this particular thing that I erased all the information here, there's nothing there. And if I were to actually come in here and actually add or take away, it would update and it would keep that stuff there. So what I can do is I can refine this almost like a mask with these pixels here. And I can come back in, and now what I was going to do is change the color on this or darken this. So I was going to get like more different color down here. And again, I just did this to add a little bit of something to it and to showcase the ability to mask, use clipping mask in your work. So okay, so I kind of went with this bluish color. And I'm using a clipping mask again. I created that by holding on Alt and clicking between two layers, and that created a clipping mask of this to this layer. Now whatever edits I make to this layer, I don't have to worry about the other one. So there we go. It's kind of got this bluish tint up to it, like more of a green tint. I'm thinking here, maybe we'll just do the vest here. Probably leave the shirt white. Create a new layer. In this particular case, the layers the order doesn't matter. The only ones that you need to care about in my example here is these two. They need to stay together. But other than that, you can drop all these layers wherever you want because the order doesn't really matter so much. We'll go I don't want to do Christmas colors, so let's try blue first. Granted, that's the beauty about this, so I can just change it because I'm keeping these all on layers. It looks like I have some noise on my brush. Yeah, I do. Turn that up, the shape. F5 key brings up your brush settings. It looks like I had some scattering. I had some sort of scattering going on. That's okay. I'm just going to go to a default brush. Whoop. Default brush. Got to make those sound effects. Turn on the transfer again. All right. I'm going to add, paint this brush in here. Wrong key. Remember, the brackets make your brushes bigger and smaller. Again, I'm going to try this bluish color, and I'm not too worried about it. Like I can see what it looks like when I switch this to color. I'm just painting really bold colors here so I can see them. And then, like I said, as you saw in the face at the very beginning of the lecture, I really painted, focused on painting different values in the face. I'm kind of staying pretty monochromatic and simplistic, but the more painterly skills you have, the more you can definitely push this. You can paint some highlights in there, some shadows if you want, things like that. So you can take that as far as you would like. All right, so I have this bright blue vest here. Let's change this to color. And yeah, that's way too bright. Almost always it's too bright. Come into the hue saturation again, Control U. I'm going to tone this way down. So then again, I'm dragging the saturation. I dragged it negative 70%. Done that. So I mean, just what I happen to have chose, I toned it way down. All right, I think I like something like that. So like this bluish vest. And again, I can come in here and keep painting on this. Like I really like what the orange was doing. Go back to this one and work the face more. 10%. Really low opacities though. 0.5 for 5%. So again, now I'm at the point where I'm just now play the face more. Or if you want to, you can come in here and paint some color into these and get mixtures into these ones. So I'm literally on a really low opacity, painting into this. How far you want to take it is up to you at this point. But now it's just refining, getting some of that other color, especially like I said on the face area. In the ears, you're going to have more orange in the center, but more pink on the edges, and things like that. I tend to go over the shadow areas with some sort of orange or brown colors, and things like that. All right. So yes, you can paint this out. Since these are all set to color, if you are happy with this and you want to save yourself some layers or want to start merging things, you can. Again, to select everything, hit Control E. However, you lose the freedom to grab entire layers and do just massive hue saturation edits to them. So I generally try to keep them divided myself, but there is a balancing act. If you have a lot of smaller elements, you're probably going to want to merge them together. Bigger things, you probably want to leave separate until you can't take it anymore and you have to merge some layers. And again, just select those layers and hit Control E, and then go back up and change them back to color. Now, the last thing I should do, technically I don't need to worry about it because I have a layer above it that painted over it. So I should erase those little swatches, but I don't need to because I have actually a color layer above it that's getting rid of them for me. So they're there. See, they're right there. I don't need to. All right, so hopefully you guys enjoyed how to do the simple technique of colorizing photos. Again, push it as much as you can. Experiment with different colors. Don't just do one color on things. Really get in there and paint the shadows and highlights and experiment with bold colors and use hue saturation to tone them down like I did when I went way overboard. And yeah, just keep at it and have fun.